Hello and welcome to the Guardian Football Weekly. A chaotic night of Champions League playoffs in Lisbon. A brilliant Vinicius goal overshadowed by accusations of racism against Benfica's Gianluca Prestianni. Real were prepared to stop playing but eventually came out and carried on. Afterwards, José chose his words incredibly badly and a grim reminder that this is all still here. Elsewhere, Monaco stunned the holders PSG for 20 minutes. Désiré Doué came off the bench and changed it all, giving them a one-goal advantage going into the second leg. Meanwhile, Juve implode at Galatasaray and Dortmund take a healthy lead to Bergamo. While we're in Europe, we'll do a little bit of La Liga and Serie A. Also today, Macclesfield's heroic FA Cup defeat, a fifth-round draw to digest, a bit of EFL as Colchester stun Cambridge to leave the Abbey with a point. We'll answer your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. Barry Glendenning, hello.
Hi, Max.
Welcome, Nicky Bandini.
Morning.
And hello, Lars Sivertsen.
Hi, Max.
Well, we'll start with the Benfica Real Madrid game. And I said in the intro, totally overshadowed by the accusations of racism against Vinícius Júnior. The game was paused after he scored an absolutely brilliant goal. He celebrated in the corner, sort of kind of Lee Sharpie celebration. And afterwards, he accused Benfica's 20-year-old Argentina, Gianluca Prestianni, of racism, which was backed up by Kylian Mbappe. That he'd used the word mono or monkey a number of times. The referee performed the gesture, confirmed that he was activating the anti-racism protocol, and the game was stopped for 10 minutes following conversations between the players, managers and officials the two teams played on. I'll just read what a few people said. Vinicius said, "Racists are above all cowards." This is on Instagram. "They need to put their shirts over their mouths to demonstrate how weak they are, but they have on their side the protection of others who theoretically have the obligation to punish. Nothing that happened here today was new in my life and my family's. I received a yellow card for celebrating a goal. I still don't understand why. On the other hand, just a poorly executed protocol that served no purpose. I don't like appearing in situations like this, even more so after a great victory. And when the headlines have to be about Real Madrid, but it's necessary." Prestianni denied the allegations. He wrote on Instagram this morning, "I want to clarify that at no time did I direct racist insults to Vini Jr, who regrettably misunderstood what he thought he heard. I was never racist with anyone. I regret the threats I received from Real Madrid players." Mbappe said, "Prestianni called Vinicius a monkey 5 times. I saw it. I cannot let things like this go. He's a young player. How can you say things like this on a football pitch? We were going to go. That was the team's decision. I don't know what happened. And then we came back. This type of person is no colleague. He shouldn't play in the Champions League again." Arbeloa, the Real Madrid coach, said, "You have to ask the Benfica player what he said. We all deserve a response to that question. We have to be totally intolerant of racism. We cannot allow things like this to happen on the pitch in 2026. I have no reason not to believe Vinicius." And then Jose said, "I spoke to Arbeloa before I understood what the problem was, just to say, this guy, Vinicius, scores a goal that's out of this world. Why is he being stupid in the corner? Later, when I realised it seems Vinicius doesn't want to play, we're talking about whether we play again. I want to try and be more balanced than Arbeloa and Mbappe. I do not want to say Vinicius is a liar, nor do I want to say my player is an incredible boy." Then he said, "I told Vini Jr the celebration had to be different. This club has Eusebio as a legend, a black player. Benfica is not a racist club." And actually, of all the things that have been said in the media aftermath, that from Jose is, if I'm being generous, Nicky, incredibly badly chosen words.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like in all the time I've been covering football, every time we get these horrible situations coming up, which is far too many times, of racist abuse, it seems like this unavoidable part of it that at some point someone is going to come up with basically some variation on this line. Well, shouldn't provoke it, shouldn't encourage it, shouldn't give them an excuse to do it. And I mean, it's tempting to want to almost be flippant about it with Jose, because you know what, of all the people who sodding provokes people, of all the people who isn't afraid to rile opponents up and get opposition fans and give them an excuse to be angry, Jose is right up there. But actually, it's not a thing to be flippant about, is it? It's disgraceful to be in any way trying to shift the blame for alleged racist abuse onto the victim of it. And it's ridiculous as well. I mean, even leaving aside the fact that it wasn't, to me, an especially provocative celebration. He did a little dance by the corner flag, by the way. He didn't go, I don't know, flounder by or running the length of the pitch to go and get in front of someone's face. He did a little dance by the corner flag, but the principle of it is outrageous. There's no world in which we should be blaming a footballer for celebrating a goal as being responsible for them being abused. Of course, again, alleged abuse. We haven't got any confirmation that he was racially abused. It's all word of taking someone's word against the other, but certainly it's a very bad look when you see the replays and Prestianni is covering his mouth and he's clearly saying something to Vinicius and designed to provoke him, and horrible stuff.
And actually, Lars, it's I suppose it's one of the problems with the tribal nature of football is nobody ever wants to call out their own club or call out their own players. It takes real bravery to do that on any level. I'm not saying that's not an excuse for Jose saying, hey, look, Benfica's not a racist club, but it takes real bravery in that moment to just say what you should say, which is, I don't know what's happened, but if that's what's happened, it is totally unacceptable. It will be dealt with, and there is no place for racism at this football club. That just feels like not that difficult thing to say.
Yeah, I guess this story shouldn't be about Mourinho really, but in the interview I saw on television, he started out so well by saying, like, I'm not going to call my player a liar, and I'm not going to call Vinicius a liar, which I think is kind of a defensible position just about, because the reality is, because he covers his mouth, we don't know what he says. I mean, we can all make up our mind about what we think is the most likely thing here, but we don't know. So we have to drop allegedly in. We have to drop just how that works. But to even infer that, you know, the words in Vinicius clearly experienced hearing, we can say that, are somehow didn't mean what he thought they meant because they had a very good black player 50 years ago. It's completely insane. Like, it's one of those things. I try to say that out loud once more to the mirror. And are you happy with how that sentence sounds, Jose? And even all this stuff about how things happen to Vinicius wherever he goes. The thing about racism is when we say zero tolerance, it needs to mean zero tolerance. So you can make points. I mean, when it comes to him being booed, when it comes to people chucking stuff at him, you can bring in stuff like, he could have celebrated someone else, he could have done blah, blah, blah. But if we mean zero tolerance for racism, that means all of that is irrelevant. Nothing of that comes into play. Like any sort of racial thing whatsoever is always unacceptable, and whatever precedes it, whatever the perceived catalyst was, is completely irrelevant. So bringing that up is pathetic, embarrassing, and small-minded by a guy. And I mean, we see so many people who say, "Oh, I'm disappointed." We shouldn't be disappointed with him. This is how Jose Mourinho behaves. We should be used to this by now. I was really, just to try to find something, I mean, there's nothing positive in this. I was really impressed by the way Vinicius carried himself when the game went on, and really by the way the game sort of actually was finished, and people, I thought for sure we were going to have at least one red card here, like when things were kicking off, and even though you had that 9-minute break to settle down, and I thought at least Vinícius Júnior is going to have to, take himself out of it, because he was clearly, and understandably, not in a good headspace. But the game was finished, and there were no sort of chaos or shenanigans, and it was a very professional job by Real Madrid to finish out the game. And I just thought the composure that Vinícius showed every time he was on the ball, every time he was involved after the incident, was incredibly impressive. And he deserves to be applauded for that.
Yeah, and actually, you're right to say that the story is about him. After the game, Trent Alexander-Arnold said, look, I can't comment too much on it as it's an ongoing investigation at this point. I think what's happened tonight is a disgrace to football, overshadowed the performance as well as after an amazing goal. Vinny's been subject to this a few times throughout his career. To ruin a night like this for our team is a disgrace. No place for it in football or society. It's disgusting. And, Vinicius, Barry has said in 2024, he felt less and less like playing because of the abuse. In June 2024, 3 Valencia fans were jailed for 8 months for racially abusing him during a La Liga game the previous year. 5 people were handed suspended prison sentences in 2025 for racially abusing him. That incident occurred during Real Madrid's game against Real Valladolid in September 2022. And it is, it is the thing with racism is that a white player doesn't have to suffer that, whatever they're doing on the pitch. And he does, and repeatedly he has. And it's just so depressing.
Yeah. I mean, people have been saying, should we expect better from José Mourinho? What he said didn't surprise me. He can be a very charming man at times. He can be a very, very unpleasant man. And he has a lot of form in that department. But I've seen since this happened, Clarence Seedorf and Theo Walcott talk about it on Amazon Prime. I've seen Mika Richards and Thierry Henry talk about it on the CBS coverage. And what struck me is just how thoroughly depressed and fed up they are at A, this happening, and B, them having to talk about this happening. Mika Richards, who's a normally really happy chap, just looked so pissed off just that this was a topic of post-match conversation. And Thierry Henry was relating his own experiences of being racially abused when he was a player. And he said, look, people tell you to rise above it. And I tried to be cocky and aloof and shush the crowd and whatnot. But he said, my abiding memory of this happening to me is how lonely it makes you feel out on the pitch and just in life in general, being racially abused. And he was very critical of José Mourinho's post-match comments and put it down to the classic Jose deflection. And he said, what we need to be talking about is what Prestianni said. What did he say? We need to find out what he said. And as has been mentioned, it's very much he said at the moment, but Kylian Mbappe said he heard what was said, and Kylian Mbappe said that several Benfica players heard what was said. So hopefully it will come out in the wash. Thierry Henry also said, we need to have an investigation now. This can't be kicked into the long grass. We need to find out as soon as possible, and due process has to be followed. And I don't know, do you take Prestianni out of the return leg, or part of me thinks, let him go, let him play, and see how he gets on. Because it won't be a nice evening for him if he is playing at the Bernabeu. And it's just sad that we're having to talk about this in this day and age, isn't it? I thought also, actually, Wayne Rooney spoke very well about it on Amazon Prime. And Mark Clattenburg, actually, he was sort of the ref expert on the comms, and he kind of went down the Jose route as well, saying that Vinícius Júnior was making things difficult for the referee by, the celebration. I thought that was a bit depressing, but I think Clattenburg just isn't very bright. I don't think there was any malice there. So, yeah, it's sad. Because it's overshadowed a really entertaining evening of football in the competition.
Yeah, you're right.
This is the first order of business,
Yeah.
I guess Clattenburg is just kind of selfishly looking at it from the position of a referee who just wants a quiet day at the office. When a goal is scored at an away ground, potentially hostile crowd, and the player celebrates closer to the fans than he has to, the referee probably goes internally, oh, for God's sake, like this, we don't need this. But I think there's a point there, which is not to hammer Clattenburg specifically, but when there is an alleged racist incident, we need to get better at realizing that nothing else matters. Like, every other circumstance around it is currently completely irrelevant. All of those concerns. And that needs to be an automatic, reflexive, instinctive reaction. The sort of justificatory stuff, I don't think that's fair on Clattenburg, really, because I think he said that before the racism protocol was invoked. But it goes back to the Mourinho point again, not to specifically have a Mourinho. We need to get out of the mindset of looking for reasons why this happened, because the reasons do not matter. And that needs to be a reflex, not something we arrive at after thinking about it for a couple of minutes. And that's something that needs to get better, I think.
I do think if there's anything to say on the other side of that, actually, it's just that, do you know what? At least the referee did immediately stop the game, immediately try to get to the bottom of it. Clearly, that wasn't something that's possible. Again, we have to acknowledge this is a he said situation, right? Because you haven't got footage that, at least until now, that's come out that's picked up exactly what Prestianni said. And for the referee, that's got to be incredibly complicated. I think we can acknowledge that from the referee's point of view. But he did do what he was supposed to do. He stopped the game and he tried to make space to investigate that. I thought that I'm really glad Barry said that bit from Omri, because I thought that was so well said about that experience and an insight that none of us here can put forward, right? We haven't been professional footballers who've been racially abused, so that's an insight that he has that none of us could put forward. And I think that one thing that, again, if you wanted to say the things that weren't horrible last night, it was actually really, it felt like a profound gesture of solidarity, at least, that Mbappe was saying afterwards. First of all, was immediately backing his story up and saying, I heard it too, but also said, look, I said to Vinny, if you want to go, let's go. Let's get off the pitch. That's the end of the game. We're not playing on if that's what you want to do. And I think that if nothing else, it sounds like Vinicius has that support internally from some of his teammates. And I think that's probably really important when you're going through this experience, which, again, as Omri has said, is profoundly a lonely one.
I used to think Mbappe showing real leadership throughout the whole thing. Mbappe, who is a character who hasn't always been praised for his general behavior the last 2 years, I think that's fair to saying. But it 100% should be noted that, in a very, very serious situation, he 100% stands up for his teammate and uses his platform and his voice to make the points that should be made very, very cogently and clearly. So he deserves a lot of praise for that.
Just on the game, Lars, and I agree with all of you. It is depressing that that's how we have to start the pod and have this conversation, but it's absolutely the right thing that we had this conversation, and hopefully we've covered it as well as we can. The goal is so good. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it is this moment of absolute, we know he's capable of that and he doesn't always produce that, but when he does it and you see that, it's like this, it's one of those where the replay from behind it is just perfect.
Yeah, and the thing about the goal, it's not the completely normal cut inside over to your right foot and curl in the corner, because it comes from a less of an angle than that. The angle is actually narrower than most of like that category of strike that you see, which means it's that much harder to execute. And the art, it's an extraordinary goal. It's an incredible goal. It's the kind of goal that you can't really like defend against either. I don't think it's like a game breaking thing, and I guess it I suppose it needed that. I mean, Real Madrid were having one of those days where they were clearly the better team, but were wasting chances. So you needed someone to step up and do something, and he did. And again, feels very trite to talk about all the other stuff, but I'm a little bit disappointed in a sporting sense by Benfica. I'm not saying it's easy to go up against Real Madrid, but I do think there's more in this team. I've seen this group of players perform quite a lot better than they did in this game. But I guess that's also the sporting side about playing Real Madrid. You're playing a Real Madrid team that has Mbappe and Vinicius up front. They have so much space. So you don't feel like you want to go out and attack them because you can get done on the counter so badly. But there was this sort of inherent conservatism, I thought, to Benfica, which was a little bit disappointing on the night.
Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. To Monaco then. Monaco 2, PSG 3. And, Monaco took the lead after a minute and were 2-0 up after 18 minutes. PSG got a penalty, prefaced by a phrase we've all heard before, Wout Faes has made an error. But it was brilliantly saved from, Kvaratskhelia. And, and at that moment, Barry, you must think, PSG are in trouble here.
Absolutely. I mean, PSG is not a happy camp at the moment. They got beaten by Rennes on Friday night in the league. They're not top of the league. They're, I think, a point behind Lens. And after the Rennes game, Ousmane Dembele, in a post-match interview, was quite critical of his teammates and made barbed remarks accusing certain unnamed individuals of putting themselves before the club. The suggestions in France are that he was talking about Désiré Doué, and Luis Enrique said, "Dirty laundry is best washed within the family." He wasn't particularly impressed with Dembele telling tales outside the dressing room. I didn't know Wout Faes had gone to Monaco, I must
No,
confess.
me neither.
And he was put into the Champions League squad, him and Simon Adingra, who didn't have a good time of it at Sunderland, so he was shipped out to Monaco. So they went into the Champions League spot, and Paul Pogba was removed to make way for Wout Faes. So how the mighty have fallen.
Oh, wow.
And so Monaco went 1-0 up. Golovin cross, two players completely unmarked at the far post. Foreign Balogun scored with a header. And then they went 2 up, as you say, inside 18 minutes with Balogun again. Plays a 1-2 with Akliouche and is put through. Lovely touch to take the ball away from Marquinhos and then slots into the corner. And then we had the Wout Faes show. So he received a pass under no pressure whatsoever from Kvaratskhelia, miscontrols the ball. Kvaratskhelia hears away from him. Haas, textbook Faes, running back towards his own goal, hair blowing in the wind, dives in to retrieve the ball, doesn't get anywhere near it and brings down Kvaratskhelia. But he got away with it because PSG missed the penalty. And then Ousmane Dembele had to go off injured, and he was replaced by Désiré Doué, and then it turned into the Désiré Doué show. He was just brilliant. Scored 2 and helped create the other one. And in between that, we had a red card for Alexander Golovin. His second in 2 games. He got sent off at the weekend as well. So, yeah.
So a nasty challenge, this, wasn't it? It was a nasty one,
bad.
that.
Studs up one. So it was simultaneously a decent and bad day at the office for Monaco. They must have been hopeful of winning when they went 2-0 up, but 3-2 against the reigning champions is probably not terrible. PSG have a lot of injuries at the moment, and I think they might be paying the price for their Club World Cup campaign because they've had a lot of injuries this season, and things aren't going particularly well for them on the domestic front, or indeed the Champions League front.
Lars?
Yes, I was watching this because I was double screening, and it was one of those where I was planning on watching Benfica Real Madrid, but because Benfica were mostly doing a decent job containing Real Madrid, this game was clearly where the expected fun was higher. The XF was significantly higher on my other screen, so I ended up watching it more than that. And first of all, I want to add to what about Luis Enrique's quotes after this Dembele stuff was really funny. I do enjoy the total disdain Luis Enrique has for anything that gets said in the media because he's so consistent on it. Like, he has previously just said to the press at the press conference that I don't read what you write because I know much more about football than you do. It's like, I don't care. You're all idiots. I don't care. And now he was with Dembele, who said after the game he made this what I think was meant as like a sort of Bravehearty kind of speech about how we must all pull together and stuff, but I don't think it landed quite that way. So Luis Enrique said, and I quote, "The players' statements after the match are worthless, absolutely worthless. So are the coach's statements. But the player statements are worthless. I'm not going to answer any question from a player in response from a player." So he just really doesn't. A real blow to post-match interviewers everywhere. Like,
but he's so right, isn't he?
There's a lot of crap.
Right?
I tell that to the Norwegian ski journalists, my friend. You never quite know what comes out. You know, you got to be there with the microphone because it can go in directions that you don't expect. So
but in terms of generally, someone says something in the heat of the moment after a game about something or other, and then, I guess we are as guilty as anyone else for overanalyzing it. And Enrique probably has a point that everyone should go home for 3 days and then be asked what they think, and it would all be, it would take longer. Like, it's not how it works, but I think he might have a point, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. But in the game, at least, I mean, it was so noticeable when Désiré Doué came on. There was a complete switch in, like, the spaces PSG were finding. Because you do think when they go 2-0 down and Monaco can sit back and just kind of counter for the rest of the game, that's kind of a tricksy position to be in, especially when PSG, they're attackers. They tend to like a bit of space to run into. But Doué was so good at, like, finding angles, finding openings. They became so much more incisive. And it became a very, very watchable game, very, very enjoyable stuff. And with the Wout Fast drama, there was an angle where they showed, like, quite sort of close-up, slow motion the moment his sort of heavy touch departs his foot, and you can just kind of see on the face going, "Oh no, this is bad."
Poor Wout.
Human drama.
Still a professional
Sorry,
footballer.
I suspect we don't have too many Monaco fans among our listenership, but I should say they also had a lot of injuries going into this game. Eric Dyer was a conspicuous absentee.
Yes, well noted for our the Monaco ultras who listen to this.
I think they were angry. I have a feeling the ultras. I mean, I just don't know because I wasn't even aware there were Monaco ultras, but they had some banners that seemed a little angry. All 5 of the Monaco ultras are upset because the team hadn't been good. Yeah, no, this is courtesy of the intrepid reporter from TNT Sport and other people, Danny Jameson, tweeting that the Monaco ultras are again protesting against the way the club is being run by boycotting the first 45 minutes of the game. Cue many, many jokes about how an ultra boycott at Monaco is really not noticed in the way it is.
Isn't the right blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. But the very select group that are the Monaco ultras, they are unhappy.
Galatasaray 5, Juventus 2. Simon says, is the Juve defence always that bad, Nicky? And actually, so Galatasaray have scored 5 goals in the Champions League match for the first time in their history. Juventus concede 5 for the first time in the Champions League in their history. It's a brilliant win for Galatasaray. The moment for me, Nicky, I think, is they're 3-2 down. That is not a disaster. And then it's Kefren Turan, brother of Marcus, dribbling around his own box like half an hour, and then like overhitting a pass to Lloyd Kelly. You're like, what are you doing? It's like you can just see, it's like agony, and it goes on for so long, and then Galatasaray are 4-2 up.
I know, and I saw Kelly getting some pelters afterwards. And Kelly did not have a good game, to be clear. He gets bullied by Osman a lot, but I feel pretty bad for him in that spot, to be honest with you. I mean, that is an absolute hospital pass being sent to him in the penalty area with someone on his shoulder, Osman, who's really good at taking advantage of defenders in situations like that. I mean, so many self-inflicted wounds. And I do think, to answer the question of, is it always that bad? No. I do think this is one of those games that from the Juventus side definitely needs to be seen in context, which is that you played a game at the weekend against Inter where they actually were really, really good against Inter. I thought they were really. This is not a result I saw coming at all, this Galatasaray game, because they were really impressive to me against Inter, but they had a pretty unjust sending off just before half-time in that game. They then go 2-1 down in the second half, come back to 2-2, eventually still end up losing 3-2 despite having fought really hard on 10 men. And then they go to Galatasaray, which is obviously not the easiest place to go and play anyway. And then in the second half, they go down to 10 men again because Cabal comes on and does some stupid stuff. And I do think exhaustion at a certain point, even though Thuram didn't play at the weekend, I think exhaustion for the team is certainly a part of the picture of what happens here at the end of the game. You've played 2 really intense games in half a week with a player down for significant chunks of them. It adds up. But some of the decision-making is, as you say, absolutely atrocious. I mean, Kefren Turan probably the most guilty of it. Although, having said that, Cabal is such a disaster after coming on. I mean, the equaliser at 2-2, he's just ball watching, gets lost, and Yilmaz behind him is literally the guy we should be watching. It's the one who ends up having the shot that gets parried out to Lang. Then he gives away the free kick from which it becomes 3-2. Then he gets sent off. So Cabal has this
he has a
sensationally bad cameo. And it's kind of one of those games. I mean, first of all, just to say on the expected fun scale that Lars is talking about, I mean, this was off the charts. This was wildly entertaining to watch. And I think that Juventus's implosion, of course, is part of it. We should say Galatasaray contributed to this too. They were flipping brilliant. Like, they were so much fun. They were so much fun and so ruthless.
Osimhen is so, like, he's so relentless, isn't he? Like, he's just you just think, you turn up. If you're Lloyd Kelly, you go, don't be like this today, please, Victor. This is too much for me.
Yeah, they have a few players, Galatasaray, who you would say you shouldn't be in Turkey, but the way I want to flip this is, like, having actually been there now and having gone to their stadium and seen a game and sort of just kind of spent some time in the city, it must be so much fun. Like, I mean, they're being well paid. The Galatasaray have got resources. You're in one of the great cities in the world, and Galatasaray are such a big thing there. There's like posters everywhere. You really get the sense that these are superstars. You're playing in front of massive crowds who are loud as anything. And you are like the biggest hero you can possibly be when things are going well. And I do almost wonder if this sort of extraordinary environment they have is one of the reasons why they're always so chaotic. Like they're not, because really, if you look at, we expect to see the Portuguese teams, one or two of them, in the knockouts of the European stage. We're used to seeing that, but the Galatasaray and also Besiktas and Fenerbahce do tend to get themselves knocked out before that. And really, in terms of the resources they can bring to bear, the cultural footprint of the club, they should be there. And if you look at the squad, Osimhen and the number of other good players, Leroy Sané coming off the bench, Icardi's hanging around there.
Sané and Icardi off the bench is something that not many teams in Europe could do.
Yeah,
no,
that's really something.
And I do think, I wonder if there's always been this thing about at home in the league, their job is to play fun football against quite bad opponents to keep the crowd entertained, and maybe making the switch to then putting in responsible performances against good opponents in Europe has been difficult for them to do. But they had so much intensity all over the pitch. Gabriel Sara in midfield was very good.
He was great.
And he's really now giving Luca, because there was a period when I was watching them last year where, like, Lucas Torreira was the only adult in the room in midfield, and you don't want that. Now there's more of a balance there. Noah Lang seems to really found somewhere he fits. Like, Noah Lang is one of those who's very, very talented, possibly a bit of a knob. I mean, he seems quite he seems to have a quite high image of himself. He seems, but maybe he is a good fit for that place. I would really like it if we could get a proper run from Galatasaray here now. I would like them to be this sort of the proper force in European football, which I really think the club should be.
I think I already brought it up at the time, because right after I said it, they got smashed 5-1 by Eintracht Frankfurt. But I was asked on like a BBC roundtable to say the surprise package for the season's Champions League at the start of the season. I did have Galatasaray down, and it amused me just because I went back and looked at that, because of course I was feeling pleased about it yesterday. And right before me, Steve Wilson says Juventus is a surprise package. So
Take that, Wilson.
But I also I really liked just going back to Osimhen quickly. Like I really liked Spalletti, how he was talking about their strikers in pre-game, where he was making this comparison. It was brought up in commentary last night as well. This comparison between Icardi and Osimhen, saying they between them have this combination of number 9 that's brilliant. And he said that Osimhen creates the chaos and Icardi exploits the chaos. And I was watching last night and thinking, Osimhen really does create the chaos. He really does. That's what he does in that role. The way he launches himself at everyone and everything. And I felt like yesterday was. Who knows? Maybe they'll have another game in them like this, but maybe yesterday was just the peak Galatasaray chaos. Yesterday was, we're going to make chaos everywhere, and we're going to exploit it everywhere, because it was a ridiculous game. It was all over the place. But when they were going forward, Galatasaray were just magnificent. It was so fun.
Baz, did you want to come in? I thought you were primed.
Yeah, just sort of adding to the whole Galatasaray Expendables vibe. Ilkay Gundogan was an unused sub. And Gabriel Sara, who was outstanding yesterday, he had 2 seasons at Norwich.
Yeah. Well, nothing will teach you Galatasaray atmosphere more than Carrow Road.
I'm just thinking, like, to go from Norfolk to Istanbul, it must be quite the culture change.
Also, we made a lot of jokes about how players leave Man United and suddenly everything comes together and their life becomes much better. Do you reckon Davinson Sanchez regrets leaving Spurs? I mean, here he is scoring goals in the Champions League knockouts, doing pistol hands, having a grand time.
Yeah. Let's do the other game then. Dortmund 2, Atalanta 0. And Guirassy has been directly involved with 24 goals in the Champions League since the start of last season, 17 goals, 7 assists, more than any other player during that period. And I guess, Lars, not that it's necessarily the point of all footballers, right? Because we were just talking about going to Turkey, it's great, but he does look quite Premier League-y, Guirassy. You can see him ending up somewhere and being, I can't work out how good, but he's got something.
He puts himself about. He's got good physique. He's a decent finisher. I do kind of, maybe this is the Fulkrug legacy, I do kind of see him as someone West Ham would pay a lot of money for and not figure out what to do with. They do have this proud history, this Scamacca, Sebastian Aller, Niklas Fulkrug sort of line of things. But I think, put him in a team that gets the ball into the box regularly and he will get you goals. I quite like this version of Dortmund. I mean, they're not the chaos team that we were just talking about Galatasaray causing. Niko Kovac is the opposite of that. And I think for a team that's kind of spent many years pining for the Klopp days and trying to find some sort of high-pressing fun priests who can sort of bring all that fun priest, that sounds bad. But someone who can bring that sort of, let's edit that out probably. They've been pining for something that resembles the Klopp days. Kovac he is a real sort of stick in the mud. He is someone who, let's just get the basics right. Let's make sure people are well trained and know where to stand and are mentally in a good place. But they're not that many points behind Bayern, and here they are, 2 up against that, because there's a thing to be said for getting the basics right. And they are now there's 3 at the back. They have a lot of guys who can run. Another assist from the intrepid Norwegian wingback Julian Ryerson, who kind of encapsulate this. He's not even when he was playing in Norway was he a superstar, but he's just a guy who's really hardworking and looks after himself physically and is willing to learn. Had 4 assists against Mainz at the weekend, 4 assists from wingback, and another great cross in here. This is not Dortmund from when they were appointment viewing because they had some of the most exciting young talents in Europe and they played great football. They're not that, but they're getting results. And again, not that many points behind Bayern.
And actually, Nicky, I only saw the highlights of this game, but what stood out to me was Dortmund stopped Atalanta doing anything, or Atalanta just didn't do anything. They had 2 P-roller shots from 30 yards, and that was sort of it.
I was going to say what made it to the highlights, because outside of the goals, there wasn't a lot. It was definitely, I think, because this was my main screen game in the second part of the evening, and I think I spent a lot of it thinking I wish I had any of the other games on my main screen because it was definitely at the bottom of the expected fun charts. But I mean, I'm certain plenty of fun for Dortmund because they were in control of it from the start and never let go of it. I think the goal coming as early as it did definitely helped define the game. I think they, exactly as Lars just said, their identity under Kovac is this, and it's not their business or their responsibility to make an open game, especially when they've taken the lead. But pretty desperately disappointing stuff from Atalanta, who really didn't do anything for 90 minutes. And I think for certain, you look at who they had missing last night and go, maybe with a De Ketelaere on the pitch or a Raspadori on the pitch, there's just someone who can make a little bit of something happen, because otherwise it is just funny with the West Ham link, because of course Scamacca was starting for Atalanta. Ghosts of West Ham, present, past and future, who knows? But yeah, I barely saw anyone. It was just a real, it was a real non-game. It felt like it was just procession is the wrong word, because it's not like they won 4-0, but it was a real steady walk to a 2-0 win for Dortmund, which is great for them, but not much excitement for the fans.
Nicky, can we do a bit of Serie A? We haven't done it for ages. Inter are 8 points clear at the top. Milan just behind them have a game in hand. Then Napoli 3 points behind them, and Roma 3 points behind them. Juve in 5th, Atalanta in 6th. Is it panning out as you expected? Can anyone catch Inter? I guess Milan win that game. There is the Milan derby to come as well, isn't there?
Yeah, I think Inter beating Juventus at the weekend definitely has made it feel like it's a lot harder to imagine Inter dropping these points now, and they have got, I can't remember if it's 13 or 14 games now that they've won all of, except for the draw with Napoli. So they are on a pretty astonishing run. You need them to drop points, and up till now the tradition has been, well, they were beating absolutely everyone except for their direct rivals, and so beating Juventus feels like it's a significant moment, even if the circumstances of it were outrageous. I'm sure everyone has seen by now the Kalulu sending off for what really should have been a sending off, probably for Bastoni, who certainly to me it still felt like simulation, even if you can say there was some contact with Kalulu and they're both on yellow cards. So a game that perhaps they shouldn't have won, but because they did win it, I think it's going to make it very hard for anyone to catch them. But Milan have been very much that team who are making the most of not being in these Champions League games every week and just consistently getting results. And I think they will probably finish second. I think it's going to be a very interesting competitive race for the remaining Champions League spots, because Napoli, who of course have dealt with the issue of having to worry about Europe nice and early, but they are struggling with injuries and look like they're wobbling a tiny bit. Roma have been given a welcome shot in the arm with Daniel Marlin, who's been really, really good, a really great fit for them since coming from Aston Villa. And then Juventus, I don't know what to say. It's hard for me to sit here and say with a straight face, I think they're going in a good direction after they got smashed 5-2. But they were so good against Inter at the weekend. So there is definitely, if nothing else, Juventus are much more interesting to watch under Luciano Spalletti than they had been for a while under Igor Tudor and Thiago Motta. So they've been doing some things right. And even Atalanta and Como behind them are in the picture. So the Champions League race is very, very interesting. The title race, my hunch is that Inter, who I will see how they go against Bodo, but I think I could see them making an early exit from Europe as well this season. I think none of the Italian teams are going to the final this year. I mean, it's pretty easy to say that after two of them have got one leg out already, but I think it's not going to be like last season. And I think the Inter will get the league title they should have won last season, but threw away while trying to win everything at the same time.
Spurs fans' ears will have pricked up by the sentence, Juventus weren't looking interesting under Igor Tudor. You wrote a good piece about them, and obviously he's managed a billion Italian clubs, as far as I can tell. That he could be the guy. He might actually not be a stupid appointment for Tottenham. Although, who knows with them?
Yeah, it's one of those things. Past doesn't always predict the future on this stuff, does it? But his past he has been very, very consistent at showing up places and doing the job that is required in that moment. At Juventus last season, he got them into the Champions League, which was what they needed to do. They weren't on course for it. He got them on course for it. Before that, 2 stops at Udinese, you look at where he basically had to drag them out of relegation fight. Both times did it. He got Verona to a safe mid-table spot despite having lost some big players in the summer before he arrived. He came in pretty early in the season that time, was only like 3 games in. Galatasaray, there's a season where he comes in and gets them into the Champions League. Really, he's been that guy who comes in mid-season, does a job, and then for whatever reasons, different clubs, different circumstances, either doesn't get the chance to go forward with the club, or where he generally has disappointed a bit. So his profile fits as someone just to get you to the end of the season and avoid relegation. I think his methods are suitably straightforward that you can implement them in mid-season. It's nothing revolutionary. It's man to man. It's high press, and it's very, very direct and make sure you waste no time creating those chances when you get those opportunities in transition. And I think that it's a recipe that can work and has worked a lot. I do think Tottenham's injury crisis complicates it a bit because it's such a high tempo, demanding physically approach that he has. And I think the formation with the wing backs, who's going to be available for them to do those roles? But I think he's a perfectly serviceable choice to get you to the end of the season. I doubt he'll be their manager next season.
Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So Wolves Arsenal tonight then, a sort of sneaky Premier League kickoff. Are you nervous, Nicky, or you feel quietly comfortable at this stage? You did draw with Brentford, so the title race is still alive.
Oh God! I've never said it wasn't alive. By the way, I keep saying we still got to play City as well. By the way, talking about what we did with the Inter. No, I don't feel confident about any games at the moment because Arsenal are just not making me feel confident with some of these performances. But I mean, it should be an easy win, shouldn't it? It certainly should on paper.
Yeah. In the FA Cup then on Monday, the penultimate tie of the round, saw Brentford win at Macclesfield. They gave a good account of themselves, Baz, didn't they?
They did. Very good account of themselves. And were very unfortunate to be beaten by an own goal from Sam Heathcote, a sort of bullet diving header at his own near post from an Aaron Hickey cross, which was unfortunate because Brentford were sending cross after cross after cross into the Macclesfield box, and none of their own players could get on the end of them, so they had to rely on this unfortunate PE teacher to score their goal for them. But I was impressed with Macclesfield. They didn't have many chances. They had a couple long-range efforts that weren't too far away, but it wasn't a full-strength Brentford team. Keane, Lewis, Potter, Dango Tara, Sepp van den Berg they didn't start, but it was a pretty strong team playing against a team of part-timers from the sixth tier. So it was disappointing for Macclesfield, but they have every reason to be proud of their performance and obviously made a nice few quid out of it. So, which I presume they need and will be well received and well spent, hopefully.
Yeah, perhaps not massively important to everyone, but young Ian Rushden has a friend who they moved back to the UK, and Sam Heathcote is his PE teacher.
Yeah.
So they were like, and after the Crystal Palace win, there were like photos, and this guy used to play for my football team, and it's his son. And he was like in the WhatsApp group going, "Look, this is the guy." And then now this was like, "This is the guy too, who's got this own goal." But
they were unfortunate, actually, Macclesfield, because at the time of the goal was scored, their right back was off the pitch injured. And John Rooney didn't have time to make a substitution. He couldn't get the sub on. And Brentford attacked down that flank, and that's how they got the cross in. Lewis Potter overlapped, or Aaron Hickey made an underlapping run and received the ball from Keane Lewis Potter. So Macclesfield were a man down in that department. So that was a tad unlucky.
Keith Andrews went into the Macclesfield dressing room afterwards and sort of gave a speech about how wonderful they all were. And I just wondered, is that, and obviously everyone goes, class. This is class from Keith Andrews. I just wonder if you're a Mac Town player, you're not Pep. I feel like, okay, you are, you're doing a really good job this season. Or is that me being over cynical, Lars?
I feel like it depends a lot on the tone that Keith Andrews struck in that conversation, which we don't know because I've only seen video, I've not heard audio. So I'm sure he seems like an empathetic guy. I'm sure it was fine. I want to flag up, I know the game has come and gone now, but I really enjoyed John Bruin's piece on the life and times of Macclesfield in the big paper. If you find yourself a little bit Macclesfield curious on the back of this game, or just hearing us talk about it for 3 minutes, you should check that out because it was a good piece on the background and history of the club, accompanied by some nice pictures from Macclesfield. That was a good bit of football journalism there from everyone involved.
Well done, John. And I'm probably doing Keith Andrews a massive disservice. I could just imagine some of them. I'm quite a good footballer, Yeah, you're doing okay, Keith, but wind it in. The fifth round draw: West Ham, Brentford, Newcastle, Man City means they'll have played each other 5 times this season. Mansfield, Arsenal's a great tie for them, isn't it? Leeds, Norwich, the Johnny Howson derby. Wrexham, Chelsea, Wolves, Liverpool, Fulham, Southampton, and then Port Vale or Bristol City versus Sunderland. There was a massive game in the Championship on Monday night. Coventry, top 2 were playing, and Coventry beat Middlesbrough 3-1. A Haji Wright hat-trick. So moves them back into top spot. They hadn't won in their last 3. So that's an enormous result for them. Quite an interesting situation at Blackburn Rovers. They've appointed Michael O'Neill, who is the manager of Northern Ireland, who have to play Italy in that playoff, as their manager. Won their first game at QPR. I heard him being interviewed on 5 Live, and he was saying, actually, it's really, you could easily do this job share. I mean, he wouldn't say anything else, right? But like he was saying, it's good. A lot of coaches at international level, especially of those size international clubs, come in, do their bit at the international break, and then, you know, they have to have other jobs. So they're in a relegation battle in the Championship. It's a lot of work for anyone, isn't it? Interesting, Nicky, that Italy have chosen to play that game in Bergamo because they are scared of playing at San Siro or the Stadio Olimpico, if I've understood it correctly.
Francesco Calzone, he did a job share. He did the Napoli job and the Slovakia national team at the same time.
Yes, that's
so
right.
he's the Northern Irish.
Yeah, I think O'Neill might have done it
Calzone.
before. I mean, I think Michael O'Neill, who's, you know, to my mind, be the Northern Ireland manager for the last 50 years, you know, but I think he has sort of occasionally dipped in and out. But yeah, the Not the Top 20 pod have covered that in depth. Our friends there. You can listen to them after you finish listening to every Football Weekly that's ever been recorded. In League One and League Two, good wins for Cardiff and Lincoln in League One. At the top, Lincoln are 8 points clear of Bolton in second place, still doing amazingly well. And in League Two, Swindon leapfrog Cambridge into second position with a 2-1 win at Barnet. The top two, Bromley and Cambridge, both drew home games against Cheltenham and Colchester. They should have won. But we were also brilliant for some of it. And Newport and Harrogate, big wins at the bottom for them. They're just 2 and 3 points off the 3 teams above them. So exciting at the bottom of League Two. We'll finish with this email from Simon, who says, Dear Max, Barry and the team, I've just had a vasectomy. During the process, the surgeon, kindly trying to keep my mind off things, asked me what football team I support. When I said I was an avid Cambridge United fan, the surgeon replied that he too followed the Mighty U's, which is interesting because they're at a hospital in between Glasgow and Edinburgh. It says, both Max and the Guardian Football Weekly inevitably came up in our discussion. The rest of the job in hand was completed impeccably while we discussed the pros and cons of the management of Neil Harris, as well as how much we both love your show. It's very kind of you to say so. Thanks for making a difficult process much easier to bear. Please do a shout out to Ewan and his team at Forth Valley Hospital. Shout outs to those performing vasectomies. United in endeavour, says Simon. Thank you, Simon.
Could I just, if I may, a Irish filmmaker named Fergus Dowd has been in touch with me, and he's made a film called The Charlie O'Leary Story, From Johnny Collins Hill to the Olympic Stadium, Rome, which is making its what is it called? Is premiering at the Dublin International Film Festival at the Lighthouse Cinema on the 24th of February. I think 2 screenings have already sold out. There are more tickets available, and he has sent me several emails asking me to publicise his film, which I'm happy to do because Charlie O'Leary is a legend of Irish football, a former referee, was very prominent in the Dublin Street Leagues years and years ago. Charlie is 102 years old, still fit enough to go to Ireland home games. And listeners of a certain age will remember him as a prominent figure in Jack Charlton's backroom staff. Jack used to refer to him as the little fella. He was sort of kit man, counsellor, all sorts. And famously, he's a very devout Catholic who got to meet the Pope when Jack Charlton and the team went to meet the Pope at the Vatican and when they were in Rome in Italian 90. And you could see Charlie, just photos of him, just totally in awe. So I haven't had time to watch this film yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. And as I say, Lighthouse Cinema on the 24th of February, that's the premiere. I presume it will be available to see somewhere else after that.
All right. You can and you have. Thank you, Barry. And that'll do for today. Thanks, everybody.